Right. So I'm Peter Cook. I'm a professor of marine mammal science and psychology at New College of Florida. I've been here 8 years, and my research is on animal behavior and brain, really. And I'm here with one of our grad students.
Hood, yes. I'm Carson. I'm one of Dr. Cook's master's students. I am looking at rhythmic sensitivity and predictive timing in marine mammals.
Yeah, so Carson is a master's student in our inaugural group, really. So the first year of this new program, new master's program, there are 11 of you, I think. Is that right? Yeah. And it's a really science-based program, so the idea is that every student will come in and do publication-worthy science by the time they leave. And Carson is a little bit ahead of the game and has already done that here just a little over 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the first year. And Carson and I have a paper coming out with some collaborators from California. It's coming out tomorrow, May 1st, tomorrow as we're recording this. And it is, I think, getting a fair bit of press already, so it's a pretty interesting paper. I'm going to frame it out a little bit and then talk to Carson about it and ask you, Carson, some questions about how we did it. You were the one who collected the data and analyzed the data and did a huge amount of grunt work, which is always important in science. So this is a study on a California sea lion. This is a sort of mid-sized marine carnivore, lives on the west coast of the US. This is a long-term managed care animal, so an animal that lives in a research facility. She was born in the wild, but for complicated and interesting reasons, she couldn't continue living in the wild. So she either had to be euthanized or go into managed care, and we managed to adopt her in California at UC Santa Cruz's Pinniped lab, which is at Long Marine Lab, which is where the study was conducted. So this animal, Ronan the Sea Lion, was adopted, 14 years ago, give or take, and has been doing research ever since. One of the first studies she ever did, I did during my graduate studies at Santa Cruz in California, and it was a study of rhythmic behavior. And at that time, scientists really believed that there were only a few animals that could keep a beat, that could move in time to rhythm, such as you find in music. And that was humans, obviously. All human cultures, all people, essentially, that have been studied do this and are pretty good at it. And then there were some really new studies at the time, this was kind of late 2000s, on some parrot-type birds who seemed intermittently to be kind of interested in and somewhat capable of keeping a beat. There was a whole complicated set of theories that came out of that, and the upshot is that there were some strong ideas that the only animals that should be able to keep a beat are vocal learners. That's what humans and parrots have in common, right? We can both change the way we produce sounds over time. We can learn new vocalizations, which is actually quite rare in the animal kingdom. This is an interesting idea. There's a lot behind it, which we aren't going to probably have time to go into, but some folks and I at the time didn't really think that was probably true. We really didn't think you had to be a vocal learner to keep a beat. We thought we probably just needed some really good training and a really adaptable, trainable animal. And we had Ronan the Sea Lion, 3-year-old, basically sea lion kid. Sea lions go through puberty around 5, sexually mature around 5 or 6. So she's like a little kid, essentially, super eager, super bright, eats a lot of fish, very adaptable, motivated. We thought, let's take this sea lion and let's see if she can learn to keep a beat. So we just trained her. We spent a few months over the summer, mostly on weekends, training her to bob her head up and down and to bring her head down on the beat of a metronome. So tick, tick, tick. And after a couple months, she got it. And once she got it, she was super good. We gave her all kinds of different stimuli, novel rates, novel tempos, different metronomes, music, including, memorably, Boogie Wonderland, which she got a bit famous for at the time. And she excelled at essentially every stimulus we gave her. And so at the time, it was by far the best non-human rhythm data that was out there. And it was quite an influential study. Ronan was not funded for rhythm work. She was funded for hearing work mostly. And I left my graduate studies and moved on, and Ronan did other work, and we did a few follow-ups here and there, but mostly we just moved on, including Ronan. And then recently, and this is what led to our current study, which I'm going to ask Carson about, some scientists have started saying, okay, the best non-human beekeeper, 10 years later, 12 years later, still Ronan the Sea Lion. That's interesting. Maybe most animals really can't do this as we originally thought, and maybe Ronan is sort of exceptional, or maybe Ronan isn't quite as good as humans. Maybe she's not doing the same thing humans are doing. Sure, she can keep a beat pretty well, but maybe there's some subtle differences between what she does and what a human does. And so that's where Carson, who at the time was at Santa Cruz, and I, and our joint mentor, Colleen Reichmuth at Santa Cruz, and my long-term friend and collaborator, Andrew Rouse, who's in California, started talking about what we might do with Ronan to really test the proposition that she's not as good at keeping a beat as humans. So Carson, this is where you came into the story, and
Yes.
can you kind of, I guess, just lay out how you came to the lab and how you
Sure.
came to be involved?
I started at the lab as an intern, where I was basically learning what it was like to work at a lab. And then eventually I became a training partner for Ronan. And it was about that same time that the renewal of the project sort of became a good priority. So it really flowed really easily. So at that time then, there was someone who was needed to be able to collect data, to be able to compare to humans, if that's what we wanted to do. So what we did was, after a pretty long hiatus, we then had our sea lion, Ronan, reintroduced to these experimental contexts.
This was like a 4-year break. She hadn't really done rhythm stuff for like 4 years,
Yeah.
right? And you're sort of underselling yourself, because really how we started doing this was I had a little funding that could go toward this kind of project. I was talking to Colleen about it, but we needed someone on the ground to collect the data who was really good, and we didn't know who that was going to be. And then sort of Colleen was like, oh, well, I have somebody who I think really might be able to do it, which was Carson, who turned out to be the right person.
Well,
So,
thank you. I was very, very interested in it at the time, so it was definitely a dream for me.
Sure. But so it'd been like 4 years, and then
Yeah.
you jumped in with Ronan.
Jumped in with Ronan, and with videos that have been out with Ronan that anyone could find now, you can see that she's moving her head a lot to try and have her low point be where the beat falls. And that's a large movement. And every other comparator, for humans at least, has been pressing a button. And that's not the same thing if you're, it's much easier to do the fine grain movement to maintain a beat than it is to wave your head around. She is she can control her head and neck really well. It's comparable to a human waving their arm around.
Yeah, they use it to catch fish. So they have
Right.
a long, snaky neck and a really grabby face, and they can kind of use it like a hand and an arm, right?
Yeah.
But still, not the same as humans are in a lab pressing a button, and Ronan is waving her head up and down frantically. It's not the same.
And she, even doing that, was good and precise and consistent, but it was really hard to be able to draw direct comparisons if the humans are just pressing a button. So to be able to sort of start on the page of humans are in this way comparable to what Ronan does, we then had to have both do a comparable task. So Ronan, the way that the behavior was trained and the way she's most comfortable and most practiced at the task is to move her head. So we didn't really want to change what she was doing and instead have humans do something that's more like what she does. So we had 10 humans, about 18 to 23 years old, who were non-musicians, Ronan is not a musician, come in and wave their arm to the same stimuli that Ronan was bobbing her head to. And Ronan is a pro. She knows what she's doing. She loves the task. She will get up onto the station or the ramp before anyone tells her to. She is ready to go. And the humans, they were more, they were very aware of if I was watching or if anything was happening in the room.
So you're saying they were less professional than the Sea Lion.
Oh, yes, less professional.
Definitely.
Yes. They were not good employees. No. They were all really, really, really great and kind volunteers. But it was interesting the difference of just readiness for a new sound. Ronan doesn't know what stimulus is going to be presented to her at any time. So, and the humans didn't at that point either. So when testing the humans, I would step out of the room and they would be videotaped, but no one would be in there. They wouldn't be receiving any feedback. Similar to how Ronan, she receives feedback for when the task is completed, the same way the humans did. But the humans were just widely different in what they presented in terms of accuracy and consistency, where Ronan was just consistent.
So exactly. So like we set it up. Now Ronan is waving her head. It covers like 30 or 40 centimeters of space. The humans are waving their hand around the same amount of space as being covered. A human arm and hand is pretty similar to a sea lion neck and head, as you said, I think correctly. You told the humans what to do using words, which we can't do with sea lions. Ronan had to learn how to do this through getting fish at opportune moments. But then we gave them, once they knew the task, we gave them novel things.
Yes.
Metronome-like sounds that probably certainly Ronan had never heard before, but we doubt the humans had heard that exact kind of sound before either. And we just left them to their hand waving and head bobbing. They're in a room by themselves. Ronan is a pen by herself. There's no direct feedback. It's just you and the beat. And then we record it. And then afterwards, Carson very painstakingly goes through frame by frame. This is ultra high resolution, temporal resolution, and pulls the low points and compares them. And as you said, like the humans were pretty variable. But I mean, were there some humans who were pretty good?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was one in particular that, looking back on the data, it was crazy that they weren't a musician and they were that well timed. But for the most part, within humans, they were really variable themselves. So you could be great on one, and then the next one, it's worse by tenfold.
Sure.
And then, so by both accuracy and consistency. So Ronan does not vary that much, and her performance is really consistently good. Where you can be great one trial and you're okay the next. Ronan was consistently good.
So when we looked at Ronan and we compared her directly to the humans, like, was there any way in which Ronan was categorically worse than the humans?
No.
No, there was not. There
No
was
way.
not. So people have debated this for years now. Maybe Ronan's just not as good as humans. Humans are in a lab pressing a button. Ronan is waggling her head. Well, fine, we'll make the humans do the same thing and we'll compare them. And there was really no way of measuring rhythm and synchrony at which Ronan was not as good or better than the majority of humans. There were a few humans who were as good or better on a couple dimensions, but when you looked across everything, Ronan was really by far, I think, the standout.
Yeah.
Particularly, and we won't go too in depth on the fine points of measuring rhythm as scientists, and statistically, but variability, the how similar the timing of her head bob was, bob to bob, beat to beat, for Ronan is really low, right?
Yeah.
And for the humans, it was mostly quite a bit higher.
Yes.
Yeah. So not just trial to trial, but beat to beat, Ronan is locked in, and the humans are, they're pretty good mostly, but.
Yeah. And an interesting point is that Ronan was primarily early, but very close to the beat, which means she wasn't responding to the beat that was presented in order to hit it. She was, I guess, predicting where it would fall.
Yep.
And was able to hit just before it, which is a really cool response to it, because to just be reactive could be so many different explanations, but predictive is really interesting.
And that really is, when we think about kind of humans beat keeping, the best human beat keepers, they really are keeping a mental model of the beat, and they're able to predict when the beat's going to happen. It's a pattern in time, and they know the pattern, and they can use the pattern to make predictions and then match those predictions. And Ronan does the same thing, and she does it at a really high level. So this, in a way, was a bit of a smackdown. It was like, oh, so you think humans are better than our sea lion, who is the best non-human beat keeper? It turns out that our sea lion is better than humans when we do a direct apples-to-apples comparison.
Much better.
Which is pretty satisfying.
Yeah, it is, especially because Ronan had not heard any of what we had presented her. So it's not a result of practicing or training or any sort of cues we could have given her. They were completely brand new to her, and we let her see what she was going to do. We watched and just measured what she did. We didn't give her any sort of feedback or practice on any of what we gave her that we compared to humans, who also received no practice. So it was brand new to both. Humans keep a beat daily, whether they know it or not.
Gives them, this is something people ask actually a lot when we talk about this research. It's like, oh, well, your sea lion's been trained. Yeah, she didn't get that much training, but she got some training. And usually, unless you're a musician, like in that one drumming movie, the name of which I cannot remember, you're not really receiving.
Whiplash.
Yeah, Whiplash. That was a lot of like positive punishers and usually just positive reinforcers. But most humans aren't trained to keep a beat. So what do you say to people who are like, oh, well, your sea lion is trained, and humans aren't trained to do music and rhythm?
Humans are trained. Humans are socially trained and reinforced. constantly. If you dance out of beat to a song, it's likely that you're going to be embarrassed about it. Also, even outside of music, you do rhythmic behaviors every day. You walk, maybe you run, maybe you swim. Those are all things that are easier to do rhythmically, whether it's a conscious choice or not.
For sure. I mean, when you look at the amount of music that the average human by 20 or 22 or 23 has heard, and then the amount of rhythmic stimuli that Ronan has heard, is not even close,
No.
right? I mean, it's a tiny proportion that Ronan has heard compared to what they've heard. Yeah, she gets really direct feedback with fish, but
Yeah.
you know, that's the only way to tell her what to do.
Yeah.
So she really excelled, and I think, what does this mean theoretically, right? So like, we can't go too deep on it for matters of, for reason of time, but like, if Ronan is as good as humans, like as a comparative scientist, someone who looks at evolution and different animals, if Ronan is as good at keeping a beat as humans, what does that tell us about human rhythm and human music? Because a lot of people have suggested that humans are uniquely gifted at all things musical. So what would you say to that?
May not be the case. There might be some mammalian neural faculty that allows for rhythm, especially to an external stimulus, so having to hear something and then match it instead of just producing your own. That was thought to be uniquely human, but perhaps not. If Ronan, a sea lion who isn't a vocal mimic, so isn't doing a lot of what the parrots and cockatoos are doing, what does she have that we also have that makes her able to do it? Or is it just spread out throughout the brain?
Right. This is something people have asked me a lot over the years, is like, why would it be useful for a sea lion to be able to notice a pattern, make predictions about the pattern, and then act based on those predictions? Like, we do it so we can dance or whatever, but like, why would that be useful for a sea lion?
I mean, outside of music, it would be useful for humans in so many different ways. For a sea lion, similarly, if you're hunting, if you're swimming, if you're trying to make any sort of prediction for if you're being chased by a predator and you're evading, an orca, or you're hunting a school of fish, you have to measure the patterns of what's happening if there is one.
Yeah.
All sorts of ecologically relevant ways to see rhythm happen.
Nature is full of patterns,
Right.
right? And some of those patterns are patterns in time. And if you can use the pattern to make a prediction, like, it's kind of a superpower, right? If you think like a snail's probably not doing that, like a tree is probably not doing that, and like, I don't know if a frog is doing that, but humans definitely do that, and it looks like probably sea lions can do that, and it may be that a lot of mammals and maybe birds can do that. And that is, if you know what's going to happen before it happens, again, it's almost like
That's advantageous.
precognition. It's
Right.
definitely advantageous, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Ronan is awesome. She is a kind of in her prime. She's, knocked down these humans who thought that they could dethrone her.
Oh, yes.
And, she's ready for more research, including research that you're doing with us, because
Yes.
this is just study one of a series of studies. We can't talk too much about this because this is ongoing, but what are some of the things that we think we should do next with Ronan? Like, what do you want to
Right.
explore next?
So I would be super interested in exploring more complex rhythmic stimuli. If she can, if you think about rhythm as a hierarchy, what we've given her are metronomic beats, so evenly paced. The interval between beats is the same. And you can make that quality more complex by filling it with music or making it just the metronome, which that's arguably harder. But what's next, right? If she can do that even tempo, can she notice a rate of change, like acceleration? Can she notice or at least perceive and be sensitive to a pattern, a rhythmic pattern, which are really interesting. There's, that hierarchy there. There's meter, there's all sorts of different rhythmic avenues to follow to see what she can do, that humans can do.
Totally. So to date, in terms of data that we put out into the world, it's all been isochronous, we say, which is a fancy word, which just means steady in time, like a metronome. Tick, tick, tick. Different speeds, but always steady in time. But you're saying, and I obviously agree with you, that there's a lot of really interesting, predictable patterns in the world that aren't steady in time, right?
Yes.
Think of, just in the most basic sense, think of the sound of a car approaching on a highway. It's like things change in time all the time in predictable ways. They accelerate, they decelerate, or across all kinds of different stimulus dimensions. So it'd be really interesting to examine an ability to keep up with that. And then complex patterns, humans use them all the time in language, in poetry, in music, in all kinds of auditory culture. We don't know a lot about that in non-human animals, but it's a really interesting area to explore. All right, one more question about Ronan. So she's very capable. She can do music. She can do new things. She can do old things. She's good as humans or better. Do you think humans like music? Almost all humans like music. Like, we really enjoy it. We find it rewarding. Do you think Ronan likes music? Do you think she kind of grooves to the song? What's your gut feeling on that?
Oh, good question. I would say not necessarily. I would say that the task she performs is one that's rewarding for her own self. I think it's one that she is confident in doing and knows she will get rewarded for because of how she performs. I think she is very comfortable with the task and likes to excel. I don't think she would seek out the Backstreet Boys or Earth, Wind, and Fire in her free time, but I think she recognizes music and can excel at performing the rhythmic task.
Yeah.
So,
do you think that might be, because Ronan, again, in terms of precision and capability, seems to be pretty similar to humans or better. Do you think that might be an area where maybe she differs? Do you think that humans just like music because we're socially trained to like music, or do you think maybe there's something deeper about human appreciation for music?
Deeper about human appreciation. Yeah. I think you put this as auditory cheesecake of where music is just that. It's a really concentrated auditory stimulus that triggers the reward center in the brain for humans. But for Ronan, I don't see that.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. I think she may have learned to find it attractive or interesting because of her reinforcement history. But when we initially presented her with music, there was no evidence that she liked it or preferred it to a metronome, right?
Nothing. Yeah.
So we are uncovering a core capability, but the motivations of different animals are still something that we should keep exploring.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Nice. So let me just ask you then, to finish up, just a few questions about so this data was collected at Santa Cruz, UC Santa Cruz, Pinniped Lab, Long Marine Lab. You, however, are getting your master's here at New College of Florida in our new marine mammal master's in science program with 10 other, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed master's students. How did you find, we kind of have a piece of this, but how did you find our program?
Well, through you. When I was as the intern at the lab at the time, you came to me with the idea that this could possibly happen, and I felt that would be an amazing opportunity to take. So now I'm here, but my work and our work with Ronan is still in Santa Cruz at Long Marine Lab, so it takes a lot of traveling across the country, which I will be doing soon. I'm very lucky to be able to continue doing it. Because Ronan's a very special animal, and that's a very special lab, and they do really cool stuff.
100%. So this is different for every one of our students, and I think will continue to be different for every one of our students. But we have some students who grew up here in Florida or even in Sarasota, and some of them are collecting data locally, maybe with manatees or dolphins in the bay. Some of them came from other places, and some of them are collaborating and collecting data with collaborators spread out all throughout the country, and with the class coming in next year, that pattern looks to continue, right? So it is at the core of what Heidi Harley, who started our Marine Masters program, and the other faculty there, including me, are really dedicated to, is education through doing real science, right? And to do real science, there's a lot of moving parts, and you only get 2 years, really, to finish your master's program. So there's a lot that has to be squeezed in there to do all the classwork, all the learning, all the, personal growth and socializing and whatever with your cohort, and the data collection, and the analysis, and the writing, and the dealing with reviews, and putting things back out, and the planning, and going to conferences, and. Wow, It's a lot, isn't it?
A lot.
Is there anything that you have found, surprising, either good or bad or neutral, about just the process of really diving in as a working scientist now? Because that is how I think of you, and that is how I want to think of really all our master's students is students, sure, but like really collaborators and working scientists. Like, and now you are. I mean, you have a paper coming out, you have more data that we're already collecting and more data that we're planning. I mean, you're kind of moving. So like, to other people who might think about like, gosh, should I become a scientist? Should I get a master's at New College or elsewhere? Should I go get a PhD? Like, what is your, still early, but accelerated experience?
Early. Yeah, and also definitely accelerated. It felt like being able to do being a working scientist was something you needed a lot more experience to do, and where you do need experience, what's the most beneficial is having experienced mentors that are there all of the time, that are really approachable and helpful and care about what you're doing. So I've been super lucky to have that here with you and Dr. Harley, Dr. Bauer, Dr. Reisig. Yeah. I'm super lucky to be here with that, but also you can do science. It's super, with guidance and with help, sure. But also, if you've got a question to ask, you can ask it. You can test it. Everyone does it in the 8th grade with the science fair or something.
Totally. So it's kind of empowering, maybe.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, it can
I'd say, yeah.
But on the flip side, like you, and not just you, but like certainly we see you over there in the lab, like late in the evening as we leave, like collecting your data and analyzing your data. Like it's a lot of hard work, right?
It is.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, you want to do the work right. You want to do it the best you can. It's going to take hard work, and it's going to take a lot of hours to analyze the data and do it all the right way. So be prepared for that. It is going to be a lot of work, but it's something I really enjoy doing, and I really love seeing the results that come of it. And that in itself is empowering for me, even though it is long hours analyzing. It's all worth it in the end.
Well, you're finding out something new about the world, right?
Right.
It's like literally no one knew until we did this new study whether any non-human actually was as good at rhythm as a human. I mean, this is a question that Darwin asked this question like almost 200 years ago. Scientists have been talking about this for centuries, and nobody knew. And now, thanks in large part to like your sweat and hard work, like we actually know. I mean, there's a lot more to learn.
And your guidance and Dr. Reichman's guidance and with Ronan. But
there's a lot of moving parts
to
any project. But like you do get to actually kind of peel back the veil and look at reality and actually see what's true and what's not through, very careful and hard work. So I find that super gratifying. Still a little farther in my career than you. Good. Do you have a question you want to ask me?
Sure.
I sort of sprung that on you. So
let me think. That is pretty tough, actually. I know how you feel about the songs that Ronan was exposed to.
Yes, I did not pick the songs.
Yes, daily exposures for both you and Ronan. How are you feeling about the paper coming out?
I'm feeling really positive, and I have to say, like, when I did the first study back in 2013 or 2012 with Colleen and Andrew, who's again a co-author on this paper from California, it was like a side project. It was almost like, it was not a joke, but it was like a fun thing to do on the weekend when we started it. My focus was not on rhythm. When we did that paper, I had so many people ask me, like, you must have always loved music. Like, music must be so important to you. And I was like, like music's fine. I like music. I'm not amusical, but like, it's not my driving passion. It was really just like a fun animal training project at first, and an interesting question that then opened up into all this other stuff that's happened over the intervening decade. But I did kind of think in some sense maybe we'd left it behind because, I'm not with Ronan and everybody's spread to the winds, So when you came along and really wanted to get the project going again, and Colleen Reichmuth was open to that, like, it was really gratifying. And now I guess I see it as a little more than just like a fun weekend project, but actually a really serious line of research that we can keep advancing.
Which is funny that you say it was just something you did on the weekends, because I read the paper while I was in college. And that is why I searched high and low for where you were able to do the research, and found the website for Long Marine Lab, the Pinniped Lab, and I applied for the internship. I'm from Texas, so I moved to Santa Cruz, California, because I read the rhythm paper on Ronan, and didn't expect I hoped something would come of it, but I didn't expect anything. And so when it happened, it was truly the stars aligning.
Yeah.
So super
there's
lucky.
somewhere there's like some high schooler who in the next week is going to read your paper, you know? And they're going to be like, whoa, this is so cool. I want to do this. And then like 10 years from now, you're going to meet them at a conference or something. They're going to be like, oh my God, it could happen. Yeah.
One day.
Yeah, one day. All right. Excellent. Thank you, Carson. Pleasure to talk to you and pleasure
Yes.
to keep working with you.
Oh, yes, you as well. Thank you.